So I want to thank Jim for filling in last week, and it's kind of good to be back into Judges. And today we're starting what I think will be two parts on what is probably my favorite judge. And I only say that because I'm writing a dissertation on Jephthah. And so I've spent a lot of time with Jephthah over the last few years. And there's just so much in this story. It's so rich. And we're going to kind of just scratch the surface. And so my plan is to do it over 2 weeks. This week we will do kind of the setup and the beginning. And then next Sunday we'll dive into the horrific aftermath of what happens in the beginning of the story. So, let's start with, we're beginning what is called the Ammonite cycle, because the main enemy is the Ammonites. And we see that this, at least initially, the text begins much like we've seen with every other cycle before it. And it says, the Israelites again did what was evil in the sight of the Lord, worshiping the Baals and the Astartes, the gods of Aram, the gods of Sidon, the gods of Moab, the gods of the Ammonites, and the gods of the Philistines. Thus they abandoned the Lord and did not worship him. So the anger of the Lord was kindled against Israel, and he sold them into the hands of the Philistines and into the hand of the Ammonites, and they crushed and oppressed the Israelites that year. And it says, for 18 years, incidentally, that phrase, that little last ending, that year, is probably a textual mistake that's kept in, because it doesn't make sense with what comes next. And it says, for 18 years, they oppressed all the Israelites that were beyond the Jordan in the land of the Amorites, which is Gilead. The Ammonites also crossed the Jordan to fight against Judah and against Benjamin and against the house of Ephraim, so that Israel was greatly distressed. So I put this map up here just so we can get a picture of what's going on. And you'll notice in red you see Philistia, that's where the Philistines are along the coast. And then we have Moab on the eastern side of the Dead Sea. And slightly above that, we have Ammon, where the Ammonites are. And then Gilead, which is this area that's kind of a nebulous area that is part of the tribe of Gad and probably part of the tribe of Manasseh. It's this sort of, it's a word for the hill country on the eastern side of the Jordan River there in what is modern-day Jordan. Okay? And so the other thing that we see that's kind of unique is that now Judah and Benjamin are included in those that are getting attacked. Everything else has been kind of in the northern tribes. We haven't seen much of Judah of late, but now even Judah and Benjamin are getting affected by these tribes that are crossing over, these other peoples. And so the Israelites cried out to the Lord, saying, we have sinned against you because we've abandoned our God and have worshipped the Baals. And the Lord said to the Israelites, did I not deliver you from the Egyptians, the Amorites, and the Ammonites, and from the Philistines? The Sidonians also, and the Amalekites, and the Maonites oppressed you. And you cried to me, and I delivered you out of their hand. Yet you've abandoned me and worshipped other gods. Therefore, I will deliver you no more. Go and cry to the gods whom you have chosen. Let them deliver you in the time of your distress. And the Israelites said to the Lord, we have sinned. Do to us what seems good to you, but deliver us this day. So they put away the foreign gods and among them and worshipped the Lord, and he could no longer bear to see Israel suffer. So my question is, what's different in this cycle?
God's leading them in this God.
Yeah, so good question. How is this speech happening? Yeah, the text doesn't say. You would only suspect it's probably through a prophet or a man of God, as it's often referred to, before we have writing prophets or things like that. So probably something like that.
They weren't trying to negotiate, maybe they were wrong, whatever has to be done.
Okay, okay. How does the cycle normally go? We've seen the cycle repeat several times now. What's the first thing that happens?
They start worshiping other idols.
Okay, they fall away and start worshiping other gods, okay? And then what happens?
Something bad.
Something bad happens, right? They get oppressed by these foreign people, okay? What happens next? They cry out to God. And then what happens?
He raises a judge.
He raises up a judge. And what happens then?
They're delivered.
The judge delivers them, and then
They live in peace for a while.
there's a period of peace before it starts over again. What happens this time?
He said no more.
Okay, God says, so it's interesting. So first step one is the same, right? They worship other gods. They get oppressed. They cry out to God. And what do you expect to happen? A judge. God says what? No more. Now here's what's interesting. What do the people do?
They still turn to the Lord.
They still turn back to the Lord. They still turn back. They still repent. Okay?
Same thing we do when we get in trouble.
Okay, yes, but it's different because the cycles change now, right? In other words, this one doesn't fit the cycle. They repent without the judge. And God says, I'm done delivering you. And they kind of deliver themselves. At least spiritually. Okay? Now, then the Ammonites were called to arms, and they encamped in Gilead. And the Israelites came together, and they encamped at Mizpah. The commanders of the people of Gilead said to one another, who will begin the fight against the Ammonites? He shall be head over all the inhabitants of Gilead. So what's different here? What have the people just done?
They've taken the initiative. They've taken the initiative to figure out how to win the battle.
Okay, but even before that, what did we see on the last slide? What was the last thing the Israelites had done?
They destroyed their idols.
Yes, they destroyed their idols, they repented. And yet what still happens?
God did not understand yourself.
He doesn't, but what happens on this slide? They get oppressed. They're not worshiping the other idols. But they're oppressed.
They told God to do what God should do.
Say that again.
They told God to do what God should do.
Okay, yes, but so now they're like, do you see the break in the cycle here, right? Normally it's, they do something wrong, they get oppressed. Here they've done something right, and they still get oppressed. And yet, what is their response? We got to find somebody to fight this battle for us. The cycle shifts. We see a break in the cycle when we get to Jephthah. And then we see, now Jephthah the Gileadite, the son of Azonah, was a mighty warrior. Gilead was the father of Jephthah. Gilead's wife also bore him sons, and when his wife's sons grew up, they drove Jephthah away, saying to him, you shall not inherit anything in our father's house, for you are the son of another woman. Then Jephthah fled from his brothers and lived in the land of Tob. Empty men collected around him and went raiding with him. Now, if you've got your Bibles with you, I would love to hear what your Bibles, how they interpret some of these phrases. In chapter 11, verse 1, what does it say? Jephthah is the son of what?
Prostitute.
Harlot.
I hear prostitute, did I hear something else?
Harlot.
Harlot, okay? Harlot, prostitute. That is how most translations deal with it. Zonah is one of these funny words in Hebrew. It's why I left it untranslated. We don't know exactly what it means. It often gets translated or thought of in the context, certainly perhaps fits many times, that it is a prostitute. But it's probably more accurate to say that he is the son of a woman outside of an official marriage relationship.
Like a concubine or something like that?
I would even say probably not a concubine, because concubines have status.
Okay.
Okay, have some status. And so, whether she's a concubine, whether she is a prostitute, whether she is, whatever the relationship might be, it is simply an unauthorized or non-recognized relationship between Jephthah's father and this woman. Okay? I choose to leave it untranslated because it removes some of the stigma. Because also, he seems to be living with Jephthah's family. Okay? Not with his mother. And if it were a prostitute, I'm not sure that that would even have been an option. Did I see a hand?
Yeah, so I went to the interlinear Bible. When you do things like this, you get thinking.
Mm-hmm.
And it has the word Zonah, and this is some. It says a harlot of a harlot. Is it like double?
No, it's not. She is in. So let me just consult the Hebrew here, just 1 second. Let's see. Ben Isha Zonah. So she is a woman Zonah. So it basically means it's a little bit redundant, okay? But Zonah is describing the woman, okay? Yeah, there's
seem kind of harsh, like
there's not an emphasis there. No, it's simply an adjective describing a noun in Hebrew. Yeah. Okay. The other one that's kind of interesting, land of Tov. Does anyone know what Tov means in Hebrew? It means good. Okay? So he lives in a good land. And then it says, empty men collected around him. The Hebrew is anashim rehim. Does anyone else's translation say something there?
worthless
Scoundrels. Outlaws. What does yours say? Scoundrels. Did I hear another?
worthless.
Worthless fellows. Okay. Yeah, okay. We'll talk about that in a minute. And then it says collected around Jephthah, and what did they do? I've left it here highlighted as went raiding, is what the NRSV says. What other translations say?
Followed him.
Followed him, okay.
Went out.
Oh, what translation is that?
Yes.
I can't believe it. The ESV got something right. Went out, okay. Okay. It's another subject. I really don't like the NSV. But that is a literal, accurate translation. Okay? Okay. Now then, empty men. That's what literally, anashim is men. Rekim means empty. And the question is, what are they empty of?
Probably don't have family.
Okay. So, scoundrels is almost like they are empty of morals. Okay? Worthless. They are empty of value. Okay? Given the way this is structured, one scholar, and his name went right out of my head. Oh, Greg Mobley. Greg Mobley is now at Yale, I believe. He wrote a book that dealt with sort of this sort of, it's called The Empty Men. And he deals with this passage. He was actually on my MA thesis committee. a really nice guy. And he says that what's probably going on here is that these are not worthless men, but like Jephthah, they are men without inheritance. Okay? They're men that are also lower level sons or sons of other non-sanctioned or non-inheritance related relationships, and therefore they're in the same boat. And what do you do if you've got no inheritance, if you're not part of the family? Well, you've got to try to make it on your own. Now, the verb that's used to describe what they do, in the NRSV they translated as went raiding. What does anyone else say? Followed. Okay, went out. Literally it says, the Hebrew says, and they went out with him. Okay, now we need to understand what, that's a euphemism in Hebrew. When you go out, you go out to war. Okay? It'll talk about, may he look after you when you're going out and you're coming in. Okay? That's literally when you go out to war and when you come back safely. Okay? That's what the phrase means in Hebrew. And so really, they went out and did war with him. So Jephthah is basically the head of a mercenary army. Okay? And so I guess my question is, if you just read this the way most of our translations deal with it, what kind of a person is Jephthah?
He sounds just like Abimelech, who also has camels.
Ah, okay. Now, what I didn't do is go back and look at how does it describe those people with Abimelech. I bet it's not empty men. There's another phrase in Hebrew that's called B'nai Belial. That's often translated as some scoundrels or unworthy men. It's a nice way of saying SOBs. Okay, it's how Hebrew said it. In fact, it's not a very nice way of saying it. It's a way of saying SOBs. Okay, that's not what these men are described as. That's what in Saul. When Saul's made king, it says that there are these guys that are like, why is he the king? Okay? And it uses that SOB. I suspect that's the same one with Abimelech. But I'd have to go back and double check it.
And then David got all the people that followed him.
Yes, and that's a good connection. David, this is much more like David. Much more like David gathering these men around him after he's kind of fled from Saul and going and taking care of business. Okay? But if you read our translations, you think Jephthah is a bastard, son of a prostitute, who gets kicked out of his family, who gets a bunch of criminals around him, and they go off raiding. He's an outlaw. But when you peel back the layers of what these words really mean, that's not necessarily the case. He's a man that's been kicked out of his family because he doesn't deserve any of the inheritance because of who his mother is. He goes off to a good land, okay? Other men in similar situations gather around him and they go about as mercenaries. Guns for hire. Making an inheritance for themselves. Now, is that a good thing or a bad thing?
Gotta make a living somehow.
It's what?
You have to make a living somehow.
You got to make a living somehow. Okay. It's kind of a neutral thing. It's yet to be seen whether it's a good thing or a bad thing. All right. Well, let's go a little further. After a time, the Ammonites made war against Israel. And when the Ammonites made war against Israel, the elders of Gilead went to bring Jephthah from the land of Tob. And they said to Jephthah, "Come and be our commander so that we may fight the Ammonites." But Jephthah said to the elders of Gilead, "Are you not the very ones who rejected me and drove me out of my father's house? So why do you come to me now when you are in trouble?" And so my first question is, who are these elders?
Are they neighbors?
His half-brothers there?
Oh, okay. Read this text really carefully. It seems that these elders quite possibly are either his half-brothers or that they are the leaders of the clan who are responsible for letting his half-brothers do what they did to him. Okay? And yet these are the very same people now that come back and ask Jephthah to now lead the army. And why do they ask him to lead the army?
I guess he's got a good reputation.
Okay. He must be pretty good at what he does, and he's got his own army. Now, how big is an army in ancient times like this? We're probably not talking 1,000 people, right? We're probably talking 50, 100 maybe, I don't know.
But you know how David sent Uriah to the front lines, right? He was throwing him away.
Yeah.
And maybe that's a little bit here. Maybe he'll win, maybe he won't, but he's a throwaway.
That's actually a good point. Yeah, he maybe also is a throwaway. Yeah, we can spare him, right? Hey, he's got a good reputation as a fighter, but he's expendable. He's expendable. Yeah, that's a very good point. Very good point. And so, the elders of Gilead said to Jephthah, "Nevertheless, we have now turned back to you so that you may go with us and fight the Ammonites and become head over us, over all the inhabitants of Gilead." And Jephthah said to the elders, "If you bring me home again to fight with the Ammonites, and the Lord gives them over to me, I will be your head." And the elders of Gilead said to Jephthah, "The Lord will be witness between us. We will surely do as you say." So Jephthah went with the elders of Gilead, and the people made him head and commander over them. And Jephthah spoke all his words before the Lord at Mizpah. Okay, what's just happened here? What's another word for covenant, maybe? They made a vow. And they made it before who? Before the Lord. Okay, keep that in mind. Now, what's different about Jephthah as a judge? We've seen this pattern of the judges before, right? Okay? We've seen it with Deborah, we've seen it with Othniel, we've seen it with Gideon. Okay? We've seen this pattern.
He's appointed by the people, not by God.
Oh, okay. Yahweh does not raise Jephthah up to be a judge. The people pick him. All right? What else?
Technically outside the tribe.
Okay, that's a good question. Is he outside the tribe? Is he part of the community, or is he outside the community? Where is he? And that's a really good question. He's kind of in this liminal space. In but not in, right? Kicked out, brought back in. It's kind of a weird situation, okay? What else? Well, we said the Gileadites selected him probably because he has an army. He has a personal motivation for taking the role. If I'm successful, I'm now going to be over you. Your head. As opposed to, if you think about Gideon, okay, what did they ask Gideon to do after he was successful? Hey, be our king. And he said, no, I'm not going to be your king. God is your king, right? Here, Jephthah he's not using the K word, okay, or in Hebrew the M word, melech, but he's not using that word. But he's setting himself up to be over the tribe. And in fact, his familial disruption that he experienced at the beginning can kind of come full circle where he's in charge of everybody. And he and the leaders of Gilead, this tribe, this clan, make a vow before the Lord, this is what will happen. If he's successful. So,
He also seems to acknowledge God or have some kind of knowledge of God's role in the history of Israel.
yes. Yeah, he clearly does. And that's coming up even in this next section, right? And we're not going to read the whole thing because it's massively long. But Jephthah sent messengers to the king of the Ammonites and said, "What is there between you and me that you have come to fight me? Or come to me to fight against my land?" The king of the Ammonites answered the messengers of Jephthah, "Because Israel, on coming from Egypt, took away my land from the Arnon to the Jabbok and the Jordan, and now therefore restore it peaceably." Okay? Instantly, how much time has passed since that all happened? Quite a while. Jephthah's going to say it's been 300 years. Okay? Jephthah's retelling of their history is a little creative, but it's been a long time. It didn't happen last week. Okay? And the king of the Ammonites is making this claim. So now, what's unique here from the other stories?
Israelites are instigators, seemingly to the Ammonites. They came in, they disrupted. Now we're just...
Okay, yeah, we're getting the Ammonite perspective on these Israelites, okay, and what they did, right? You came in and took all our land, and hey, you should give it back to us, right? It's ours. Do we see diplomacy with the other judges? No. Let's raise up a judge, go and fight. But Jephthah kind of takes the, let's try the diplomatic route first. Okay? Before we start throwing bombs at each other, why don't we all talk? Okay? And so it starts off. And so I'm going to skip a bunch of what gets said, but I'll kind of move into what happens towards the end of Jephthah's return speech back to him. He says, "Then Yahweh, the God of Israel, gave Sihon and all its people to the hand of Israel, and they defeated them. So Israel occupied all the land of the Amorites, who inhabited that country. They occupied all the territory of the Amorites, from the Arnon to the Jabbok, and from the wilderness to the Jordan. So now Yahweh, the God of Israel, has conquered the Amorites for the benefit of his people Israel. Do you intend to take their place?" Okay, we're going to come back to that thought in just a moment. And he says, "Should you not possess what your god Chemosh gives to you to possess? And should you not be the one to possess, should we not be the one to possess everything that Yahweh our God has conquered for our benefit? Now, are you any better than King Balak, son of Zippor of Moab? Did he ever enter into conflict with Israel, or did he ever go to war with them? While Israel lived in Heshbon and its villages, and in Aroer and its villages, and all the towns that are along the Arnon, 300 years. Why did you not recover them within that time? It is not I who sinned against you, but you are the one who does me wrong by making war on me. Let Yahweh, who is judge, decide today for the Israelites or for the Ammonites." But the king of the Ammonites did not heed the message that Jephthah sent him. Now, this whole speech is fascinating for a number of reasons. Number one, it doesn't exactly match what we see in Deuteronomy and in Joshua about how they took the land. Okay, there's some differences. Chemosh is the god of the Moabites. He's not the god of the Ammonites. Okay, they have their own god. And the Ammonite leader is trying to take credit for, or trying to take possession of land that belonged to the Amorites, different folks. Okay, so there's a lot of weird stuff going on here. But what I want to focus on is Jephthah's got a theology here. Okay, and that theology is who controls what land you possess? The gods. Okay, and what's more is, I don't have it on this slide. If you go back to that slide before, he says, hey, Yahweh gave us this land to Israel. Are you willing to take their place? In other words, are you planning to serve Yahweh? Because he got it for his people. Are you willing to be his people? Okay? So there's this idea that comes up in this, and it runs through a lot of the Old Testament, that gods are geolocal. They control territory. Okay? And because Yahweh was able to give this territory to the Israelites, it's under his jurisdiction. Okay? And what's kind of interesting about that is, what's Israel get in trouble for? All throughout the book of Judges?
Worshiping other gods.
Worshipping other gods. Okay? So basically, he's kind of asking them, are you going to do what we did? Are you going to worship other gods? Okay? Stick to your own God. And if he wants you to have this land, he can give it for you. If he's more powerful than you. It's a fascinating theological perspective. Okay? And then he ultimately says, let Yahweh decide. Let him judge. A lot of this language is court language. Okay? It's kind of funny. Jephthah's a master diplomat and kind of throwing out the court language of hey, this is our case, this is our defense, you're in the wrong, you've wronged us. And so this language is very much a judicial sort of structure of debate. And it's the first time that we see in Judges this sort of diplomacy unfolding. And then it says, the Spirit of Yahweh came upon Jephthah, and he passed through Gilead and Manasseh. He passed on to Mizpah of Gilead, and from Mizpah of Gilead he passed on to the Ammonites. And Jephthah made a vow to Yahweh and said, if you will give the Ammonites into my hand, then whoever comes out of the doors of my house to meet me when I return victorious from the Ammonites shall be Yahweh's, to be offered up by me as a burnt offering. So Jephthah crossed over to the Ammonites to fight against them, and Yahweh gave them into his hand. He inflicted a massive defeat on them from Aroer to the neighborhood of Munith, 20 towns, and as far as Abel Karamim. So the Ammonites were subdued before the people of Israel. Now, I want you to think about the sequence of events. Jephthah's appointed military leader. Jephthah engages in diplomacy. Diplomacy fails. The Spirit of Yahweh then comes upon Jephthah. Jephthah heads out to war. Jephthah makes a vow to Yahweh. Jephthah engages in war with the Ammonites. And Yahweh gives Jephthah resounding military defeat. When does Jephthah make his vow?
Before he went to war.
Before he went to war. Okay? Yeah. That's a really interesting question. When does he make the vow? And why might that question be important?
What did he say he has resounding defeat? Didn't he have resounding victory?
Yeah. Sorry. He inflicts a defeat.
Okay.
Yes, sorry. Bad words on my part. No. Yeah, he is given a tremendous victory. Yahweh does the victory. Yahweh inflicts a tremendous defeat. Yeah, sorry. Good catch. Very good catch. Thank you. Yeah, he is not defeated. Okay?
Is it after diplomacy fails?
It is after diplomacy fails, and it is after he has started on the path to go to the battle. But the question then that comes up, and this is something that scholars, it's really fascinating in my research, looking at when do different scholars think Jephthah made the vow, because the vow is so stupid. It is such an idiotic, stupid, and careless vow. Okay? And the question is, why would a man who just engaged in such master diplomacy make such a stupid vow?
Is it because he's scared?
Well, that's a question. And so what some say is, well, he makes it in the heat of battle. It's a rash vow because he's not thinking. Others say, oh no, he made it with well-informed intent before the battle. Okay? But what's also interesting is, when does the Spirit of Yahweh come upon him versus when he makes the vow?
Like before.
It's before. The Spirit of Yahweh comes on him before he makes this ridiculous and stupid vow.
Does he know that? I mean, I'm just saying,
Okay,
maybe he wanted to win so badly. You know how sometimes we want to win something so badly that we're willing
Yeah.
to just.
so here's the interesting thing. Vows of this nature, we know from various literature and various sources, vows of this nature are common. Okay? Making a vow before going into battle, invoking or calling on your God to protect you and deliver you, and in return giving something in exchange is common. Okay? The question is, what do you give in exchange? And he leaves it really open-ended. But maybe not as open-ended as you might think. We may not get through all this. But here's his vow. Okay? And there's two aspects of this vow. One is, why he makes the vow is a question of when he makes the vow. What's his motivation? In one sense, he's making it because that's what you do. Okay? But this vow has conditions. What are the two conditions that Jephthah sets for the vow?
You become victorious.
Victory is number one. But victory is not enough. What has got to happen next?
Burnt offering.
Well, that's what he's going to do. But what are the conditions he puts on God, okay, in order for him to do what he's going to do?
He has to return.
He's got to get back home safely. In other words, if he's mortally wounded in battle and they still have victory, all bets off. Okay? It's a two-part condition. Okay? Defeat the Ammonites and return home safely.
And to his house, so it's his family, his personal family.
And then, what does he give in return? What was that word you used? Whoever is the first to come out of the doors of my house to meet me when I return victorious. Is he expecting a sheep to come out of his house? Is he expecting a goat to come out of his house?
Servant? What's the definition? It's either his wife or his child.
He is, yes, okay. He is not expecting an animal to come out of his house. I used to think he was, but the more I've read the Hebrew, the more I've looked into it, it is whoever. It is not a whatsoever. Okay? It's a little ambiguous, but it's pretty clear that he is expecting a person to come out. And that person will be offered up to Yahweh in smoke. Okay? As an olah.
Again, the interlinear, it uses the word ben, which I always thought meant son, like male descendant. Can it also mean female?
So it uses, no, it is, in this case, it is, let me find it here. Let's see, 30. Lord saying, it will be, which, it is the thing which comes out. Okay? The one that comes out of my house is the way he describes it. Okay? And it's a without getting too grammatically nerdy, it is masculine, but it is masculine plurals in Hebrew function as collectives for male or female.
Like all of mankind.
All of mankind, yeah, exactly. Okay, and so that is the foolish part of his vow. Yes.
Is there any place in the Bible that God has ever asked for a human sacrifice?
I'm so glad you asked that question. Is there any other place in the Bible where God has asked for a human sacrifice? And the answer is yes. And I want you to think about that for next week. Okay? Because it is something that is a marked contrast from this one. Okay? it doesn't happen, which makes people notice what happens here. It does happen. Okay. Jephthah's conditions for his vow. Okay. Whatever comes out is also 2 conditions. Shall belong to Yahweh and shall be offered up as a whole burnt offering. Okay? We're going to talk about this more next week. My goodness, what is the role of the Spirit of Yahweh that came upon him? What's its role in this vow? What does Yahweh think about this vow? Okay? That's for next week. But I want you to notice there are 2 vows that take place. The first vow is the vow that Jephthah makes with the Gileadites. Okay? If you bring me home to fight with the Ammonites, and if Yahweh gives them over to me, then I will be your head. And then Jephthah turns around to God a little bit later and says, if you will give the Ammonites into my hand, and I get to return home safely, then whatever is the first to come out of my house will be yours, and I will offer it as a burnt offering. Do you see the connection between the 2 vows? Jephthah's doubled down on becoming their head. And he's invoked Yahweh to do it. And the price is another human life. To be determined. And the question is, who decides what that is? We'll talk about that next week. Okay. Battle, massive defeat, and the Ammonites were subdued before Israel. There is no doubt Yahweh defeats the Ammonites in clear and resounding fashion. Has he met the conditions for his vow? The first half. And we'll pick up the next half next week. So, Jephthah's judgeship breaks the pattern. Israel rejects this judge, selects this judge, not Yahweh. Excuse me. Jephthah seeks a negotiated settlement, a diplomatic settlement with a very interesting retelling of Israel's history from a very interesting theological perspective. The Spirit of Yahweh comes upon Jephthah after negotiations fail, and the vow to a deity is a common pre-war element. It's the contents of Jephthah's vow that are maybe suspect. So for next week, let's look at Jephthah's return home. So read the rest of Judges 11 and a little bit of 12. Who comes out to greet him? Who is the first to come out to greet him? How does Jephthah fulfill his vow? And does this remind you of other stories, both biblical or non-biblical? And what are the consequences? And we'll pick that up next week. Thank you all very much, and appreciate all your comments. See you all next week.